Well, he spoke last night at the RNC, one of the best speeches of the evening, I might say, as well as the fact that he's my buddy. So, of course, I'm a little bit biased, but he did do a great job. He is a former Army Ranger, author of the fantastic book Outlaw Platoon, and running for a congressional seat out in Pennsylvania. Mr. Sean Parnell joins us now. Sir, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. How you doing, Buck?
I'm all right, man. So I always forget. Well, what's the specific district you're running for out in PA?
It's Pennsylvania's 17th congressional district. And so it's a district that, had it existed in 2016, President Trump would have won the district. Senator Pat Toomey also won the district by a slightly larger margin. So the two very, I mean, look, Trump and Toomey, they could not be more different in almost every way. But two very different Republicans have carried the district in the last 4 years. And Connor Lamb, well, he was swept into power in a special election just after 2016 and won by a razor thin margin of something like 400 votes. And then he ran again against an incumbent and won by a larger margin. But here's the deal. The DCCC spent $10+ million on this guy. He was the only game in town, as you know, if you remember that special election. And he's not going to have that fire sport this time because the Democrats are on defense. They've got 30 seats to defend. Ultimately, they need to hold 17. And Connor is in the bot. I mean, he's like, what, 27 out of 30 Democrats in House districts. He's like almost dead last in fundraising. And so he's vulnerable. He's weak. He's got an integrity problem in the district. He's literally flip flopped on every single issue. And I mean it, man. This is not me throwing political jabs. Like, he's flip flopped on every issue from pro life. He said he was pro life. Said he was pro gun. Said he was going to support the president. Said he was going to oppose Pelosi. All that is untrue. And so he's got an integrity problem in the district, and that's certainly part of our messaging. But he's gonna have an issue in November for sure.
So, Sean, how was it last night speaking at the RNC, man? That must have been pretty heady stuff. Look at you, Mr. Big Time. I remember Sean Parnell was my drinking buddy, and now here he is, getting ready to run the country. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It was overwhelming. I mean, because my family, I come from like a half Democrat, half Republican family. And we watched conventions growing up, man. It was sort of woven into the fabric of our family's DNA. And I mean, we sit around the dinner table, we argue and fight with one another. I mean, we hardly agree on anything. And so to be on the stage now speaking at a convention, overwhelming is the best word that I can use to describe it. I mean it, man. I came home from the military and I was unexpected. I was medically retired, right? I didn't expect to get blown up in Afghanistan. I expected to go into the military and really make it a career, but that didn't happen. And I left the military really like broke and broken. Didn't really know what I want to do. Went back to grad school and started writing books. Had no idea that my first book would be anything. But to be on the stage 10 years after that, is really just overwhelming. And on the stage with just some amazing patriots. I mean, that first night of the convention, I felt, I don't know what the heck these Democrat pundits are talking about. There was no doom and gloom on that stage. I feel like the message at the RNC was wholly positive. While Democrats are focused wholly on America's past sins, I feel like Republicans are focused on a vision for the future. And I think that's going to resonate in November.
Speaking of Sean Parnell, he was one of the speakers last night at the RNC. He's a former Army Ranger, combat veteran, author of Outlaw Platoon, and running for Pennsylvania's 17th, right? I got it right this time? I'm always trying to make sure. Is that right?
You got it right, man. You got it
17th
right.
Congressional District. Very, very important to get all this stuff because we've got some great listeners all throughout the area, including out in Pennsylvania. So, Sean, I heard your speech last night, obviously, and a lot of your friends in the media were all saying, yeah, Parnell kicking butt, doing a great job again. But I want to know what you see as the defining 2 or 3 points between what the DNC was last week and what the RNC is this week.
Well, like I mentioned previously, I think that the Republicans are focused on a vision for the future and charting a path forward for this country. All the Democrats had was basically orange man bad, for real. I mean, it was like, and I look, man, I tried to go into it with an open mind and open heart, listening to what they were saying to try to get a sense of where they were coming from. And, I typically take melatonin to try to sleep at night. Didn't need it when I was watching the Democratic National Convention. Fell asleep, 5 minutes, fell asleep. It was so boring. It was like a post-apocalyptic, can't even say the word, like dystopian telethon. It really was just bizarre. I mean, the music videos and all this other stuff. And then you juxtapose that to what the Republicans are bringing to the fight. It's just the production value is just completely different, just on the merits. But I think Republicans, what we're really focused on now, I think, is being the Big Tent party, the party of ideas, knowing and recognizing that it's discourse, the free exchange of ideas that make this country truly exceptional. And right now, the left punishes you if you aren't in lockstep with their draconian orthodoxy, right? The classical liberalism was about tolerance and the free exchange of ideas. That is not the modern day Democratic Party. And lastly, the point that I was trying to make in my speech last night, my grandfather, who's a lifelong Union Democrat, who's like almost a second father to me, he was a proud Democrat, but the Democrat Party of today is not the party of the American working class, right? It's the party of hedge fund managers, Hollywood celebrities, academia, right? And most of those people within those organizations have some level of contempt for middle America, and Republicans we're the Big Tent party that represents all those people. And so, I firmly believe that this country really stands, is precariously balanced on a knife's edge right now. And I think that, God forbid if Joe Biden wins, and God forbid the Democrats get control of the House and the Senate, I don't think we get this country back. I just don't.
Pennsylvania is obviously a critical state, Sean. How do you see things shaping up? I know it's everyone's going to say this a million times between now and the election, but there's a lot of time between now and when people are actually going to cast their ballots. We know that, but what are the dynamics right now that you see in Pennsylvania? Are you confident that it's going to go for Trump? Is it a 50-50 coin toss as of today?
I'd say it's split right down the middle. I don't believe the national polls for a second when they say that Biden is up by something like 15 points or something. That's absurd. Pennsylvania is split right down the middle right now, which I think ultimately is good for any incumbent, and especially for someone like President Trump, where 60+% of the people are afraid to express some level of public support for the president, and look, this is played out on the ground for me, Buck. I'll go to doors, and we're knocking 400 doors a day, man, every day from now to the election. And people will take my signs and say, "Oh, we'd love to take a sign for President Trump, but we're afraid of our house being vandalized." I mean, that phenomenon is real, and so. I think President Trump is going to win the state of Pennsylvania, though. I mean, and the reason for that is, Buck, people in this state are used to having the rug pulled out from under them. Under 8 years of Barack Obama and Joe Biden, right, this state lost 51,000 manufacturing jobs and oil and gas jobs. It was a real tough 8 years. And so when Joe Biden is, campaigning with Connor Lamb, who's my opponent, and AOC and Bernie Sanders, and they're saying, and now Kamala Harris is talking about banning fracking on day one. People remember it was just a few years ago when all those policies were reality, and people were out of work, and life was a lot more difficult. And so people in Pennsylvania remember that.
What would banning fracking do in Pennsylvania specifically?
Well, it's the centerpiece of our economy, Buck. I mean, especially in Western Pennsylvania, 117,000 jobs, 117,000 depend on the oil and gas industry. And then there are ancillary jobs that get a major boost from the oil and gas industry for restaurants, real estate agents, title companies. They all get a boost. In Western Pennsylvania, it's going to be absolutely devastating for our economy. And if you don't believe me, and this isn't me preaching doom and gloom, go read Go read the energy plan that Joe Biden put forth itself. It straight up says right in there that it has a plan to accommodate for, quote, unemployed energy workers. Like, if your plan is not going to put energy workers out of work, then why is it accommodating for them in the written word? So Pennsylvanians, they remember what that was like under Obama and Joe Biden, and they don't want to go back there. And that's what I was saying earlier. There's been an interesting, like, union Democrats that have long since towed the party line with the Democrat Party. They feel, and I'm always hesitant, I don't want to speak for them, but I think the vast majority of them feel left behind by their party, just because there's no room for coexistence with this sort of chimera for some game in the Democrat Party. And, those hardworking union Democrats who built this country, by and large, with blood, sweat, and tears, feel like their jobs and their life and livelihoods are threatened. And they should feel that way, because the Democrats have disdain for them. And and Barack Obama said it himself. And when he was president, they were clinging to guns and Bibles, right? Those are the union Democrats that the Democrats speak so with such contempt for.
Well, Sean, if you win, I don't know if I'm allowed to buy you a steak, or if you'd have to list that as some kind of a gift or something. But we're certainly rooting for you, my friend. We're rooting for you. Great job last night at the RNC, and we'll keep in touch as you're getting closer to Election Day here. Finish strong, my friend. Finish strong.
We will. Thank you, as always, for having me, Buck. Take care, my friend.
Growing up in the Deep South, I've seen racism up close. I know what it is, and it isn't Donald Trump. Just because someone loves and respects the flag, our national anthem, and our country, doesn't mean they don't care about social justice. I care about all those things. So does Donald Trump. He shows how much he cares about social justice in the Black community through his actions, and his action speaks louder than stickers or slogans on a jersey. He keeps right on fighting to improve the lives of Black Americans and all Americans. He worked night and day. He never stops. He leaves nothing on the field. Some people don't like his style, the way he knocks down obstacles that get in the way of his goals. People on the opposing team didn't like when I ran over them either, but that's how you get the job done.
Herschel Walker giving a very solid speech at the RNC, longtime friend of President Trump. And this is something that I've returned to frequently over the last 4 years. There's nobody who knows Donald Trump well and has known him for a long time who thinks that this guy is a racist. I know there are people who call him racist constantly, and unfortunately it has been a very effective narrative. It's a very effective smear that the Democrats have been able to attach to Trump. But no one who really knows this guy thinks that he's a racist. Trump is somebody who has always... He likes people. He likes different kinds of people. He appreciates strength and skill and excellence and beauty. And these are just he's a guy who doesn't take this approach that the liberals are so obsessed with, of thinking about people first based upon their skin color. He doesn't care. The people that know this president, and I know people who have known him since I was a child, known him personally. They'll tell you that this is all a fabrication. This narrative that Donald Trump is such a racist is just the Democrats said that every Republican is a racist, right? I mean, Mitt Romney was a sexist. Mitt Romney is like the most innocuous Republican politician you could find, and Joe Biden still recently was referring to the binders full of women comment as if that's some kind of a hilarious put down, a total smear, a total misrepresentation of what was intended by Mitt Romney at the time. Not that I'm some Mitt Romney fan, as we know, Mitt Romney is all about supporting Black Lives Matter now, and whatever gets a nice editorial written about him in The Bulwark, or a nice tweet from the Lincoln Project, whatever. So that's all a part of this that I think we need to remember. Oh, Kim Klacik, who is now shot to national prominence after her video about Baltimore went mega viral. She also spoke last night. Here she is, play 17.
The Democrats have controlled this part of Baltimore City for over 50 years, and they have run this beautiful place right into the ground. Abandoned buildings, liquor stores on every corner, drug addicts, guns on the street. That's now the norm in many neighborhoods. You'd think Maryland taxpayers would be getting a whole lot since our taxes are out of control. Instead, we're paying for decades of incompetence and corruption. Sadly, the same cycle of decay exists in many of America's Democrat-run cities. And yet the Democrats still assume that black people will vote for them, no matter how much they let us down and take us for granted. We're sick of it. We're not going to take it anymore. The days of blindly supporting the Democrats are coming to an end. In Baltimore, we have the highest number of black Republicans in the entire country running for office this election cycle. Joe Biden believes we can't think for ourselves, that the color of someone's skin dictates their political views. We're not buying the lies anymore. You and your party have neglected us for far too long.
All it would take is, instead of about 10% of black voters voting for President Trump, if that number could go up to 20 or 25%, not only would Trump win, but this would send shockwaves through the whole Democrat narrative. One of their favorite points, one of the Democrat Party, the Democrat establishment's favorite lines, talking points, is that there's almost, there's near universal support within the black community for the Democrat Party. It's 90+%. I mean, that's a more reliable, large voting constituency than any other demographic group has anywhere in the country for either political party. The African American community, black Americans, are a more reliable Democrat voting bloc than any other voting bloc that you can look at that's a comparable demographic of size anywhere else in the country. All you need is 20% of that vote to go Republican, and the Democrat Party is in shambles all of a sudden. The Democrat Party can't win a national election. The Democrat, it would just, and it would also show that finally what Kim Klacik here is talking about, the grip that the Democrats have had on the black community for all of this time without, it was the Democrat Party that was the party of slavery. The Democrat Party that was a party of the Ku Klux Klan and of Jim Crow and of segregation. And then finally, Republicans help with the civil rights movement and take actions necessary to allow for, I'm now condensing a lot of history into 15 seconds here, but the civil rights movement with brave black Americans like Dr. King leading it, and Republicans take action, and Eisenhower sends troops to the schools, and all these things that happen, all these actions that are taken. And then the Democrats switch, and then under Johnson, the Great Society programs, all of a sudden Democrats are, oh no, we're all about the black community. And there's no historical accountability for the Democrat Party in all of this somehow. It's really, the greatest trick the Democrats ever pulled was convincing black America that the Democrats were not the party holding black America down for as long as they were. And now are the huge advocates for black America. It's the reason Democrats can win national elections right now. And if we could just break that grip and convince more of our fellow Americans who are African American to vote Republican, it would be a game changer. But I'm not holding my breath.
It's time for roll call.
Just one mulligan today, one extra swing here off the tee. CNN had a chyron earlier today that read violent protests, and it was up for 15 seconds, referring to what's going on in Wisconsin, and then they changed it, and everyone's just having a field day with it because, God forbid, CNN actually describe what's really happening in Wisconsin, right? God forbid CNN tells people the truth. That's very off-brand for them about this. They're going to have to tell everybody that the protests are something else. They're mostly peaceful, right? When we know that, they changed. It's amazing to watch it. 8 p.m. curfew ordered after protest. It went from violent protest to protest in 15 seconds. Because I'm sure Zucker was sitting in his little office, the reclusive dwarf king of CNN. Another great Tucker line. I got to stop. Well, I cite when I borrow a line, but I like that one about Jeff Zucker. Zucker must have seen this one and sent a directive. Take that truth off the air. What do you think we're doing here? This is CNN. There you have it. Producer Mark, how you doing, buddy? We haven't checked in with you today. Everything all right?
Everything's good, Buck.
Nice. You ready for things to get more to sweatshirt weather? I like sweatshirt weather, especially with all the extra LBs I've been packing on during quarantine. You know?
What's this weather thing you're talking about?
It's gonna start getting cooler soon here.
Oh, I don't go outside.
Oh, yeah, no. There's no sunshine allowed. We're just in a constant. We're like characters in the Matrix now. Remember that when they have the people who are in those pink slime pods that are used as human batteries? We're like that except for conservative media content. We're just in these pink slime pods churning out content all day. It's exciting.
Yeah, I basically live at my desk.
Yeah,
Right.
makes two of us. So yeah, and then they churn the content. Or rather, they got the pipes coming out of us with all the content, and then maybe they just got a little bit of like mac and cheese on an IV going in my arm. That's all I need. Gluten-free.
It actually doesn't sound bad, mac and cheese.
Yeah,
Some nutrients.
it's a fair trade-off. They turn us into human content batteries, and we get a steady stream of mac and cheese.
I'm allowed to watch one hockey game a day. I'm good with it.
Yeah, it could be worse. Facebook.com/Buck Sexton. Team Buck at iHeartMedia.com. You want to email us. And with that, and don't forget also on Instagram. If you're not following me, please do. Buck Sexton on Instagram, just to make things more fun. I do political stuff there, but also I'll put up, photos of Tallulah. So if you want that fun content, you gotta go with that. You gotta follow me, Buck Sexton on Instagram. A lot of you are on Instagram. You should all, if you're listening to this show on your Instagram, you're not following me right now. It makes me sad on the inside. So please give a follow there. And now we can get to your thoughts, courtesy of roll call, which comes into us through a variety of means. And then producer Mark has the great honor of sifting through your roll call thoughts. TJ, Buck, would it be too far to extend an invitation to Tulsi to speak at the RNC convention, since she was the only Democrat nominee that got a delegate but no speaking slot at the DNC convention? Well, TJ, as you know, I am more favorably disposed toward Tulsi than the other Democrat candidates. I mean, Tulsi and Yang I find the least odious as people of all the Democrat candidates who are running, and Yang I even find to be a reasonable enough fellow. I think he's wrong on stuff, but I think he's wrong without being a jerk about it necessarily. And Tulsi served her country, and I think Tulsi's a patriot, and it's such a slander against her that she's like Assad's puppet. I always thought that was so unfair. But no, you can't have Tulsi speak at the RNC because she goes after Trump just as hard as pretty much any other Democrat. I mean, she thinks Trump is awful. So we gotta keep it real here. We gotta be very clear. It's not like Tulsi Gabbard is saying, well, Trump has his moment. No. He thinks he's pretty awful. Wayne. Hey, Buck. Will Trump and Biden ever debate? I think the DNC is scared to put Biden up against Trump. Of course, unless they leak the debate questions to Biden like they did to crazy Hillary. Thanks for all you do, Buck. I'm an avid listener and love what you do. Shields high, brother. Wayne, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. It's an honor. And as for the Trump-Biden debate, I think it's going to happen. You're going to get one debate. Biden, whatever special vitamin mix they have to give him that day so that he can stay awake and doesn't, wander out on stage, drooling a little bit and, muttering about how he wants to watch MASH reruns. Whatever they have to do, they'll do, and Biden will go out there, and he'll be practicing the talking points. Look, the guy's been a politician forever. I mean, he knows how to just do the boilerplate. I'm going to make America better because I'm going to be, the working person, and I'm going to do. You're going to hear the usual Biden crap you've been hearing forever. So I think there will be one debate, especially because things have narrowed a little bit now. And it has become a liability for Democrats that it is so clear that part of their plan for Biden is to prevent him from being exposed to public scrutiny. That is not what you would call confidence inspiring. in the general public. When you have a presidential candidate that you very clearly are trying to shield from public scrutiny, there are some people, not all, but there are some people who are going to see that and realize that it's kind of a bad thing. So there you go. Greg, next up here. Hey, Buck, wanted to bring up the fact that at the Democratic convention, they were talking about how well the Obama administration handled the Ebola outbreak. Truth is that it's not an airborne virus like COVID is, and most people become extremely sick and die before they are able to spread it. So it's somewhat easy to contain. I thought it was rather silly and quite dishonest to compare the two. Also, I have a feeling the COVID case numbers and death numbers are extremely inflated. Just some thoughts I had. Shields high. Greg, yeah, there's going to be a lot of fighting over the COVID numbers in months to come because there are incentives for people to code in hospitals a death as a COVID death because of federal funding that kicks in. There's a lot. We're going to be unraveling that for a very long time. I think the NFL also, producer Mark, did you see this? The NFL, like 70 of their positive results were actually false positives. Did you see this?
Yeah, that's correct. They had a bunch of false positives. A bunch of teams had to kind of scramble, but then they realized it was a false positive, so they continued practice.
So if the NFL, which I am going to assume has pretty high-level concierge medicine access, if you have over 70 NFL players with false positives for COVID, and we're running, I mean, who can even keep up? We're running all these tests, all this testing. How much of the general population do you think has gotten a false positive too? You know how? I mean, by the way, I've been in week 2 of quarantine now. The whole quarantine thing is completely. I'm not sick. The whole quarantine thing is absurd, and I'm sure that I've tried to be. Look, I'm just trying to do my part, and I don't want to be in a position where I go, oh, well, it turns out I was sick, and I was hanging out in huge crowds, and all. I mean, but the whole thing is just absurd. I mean, the whole thing is just unworkable, unenforceable. Oh, and that's why I didn't mention it today. I'll get into it more when I talk about this tomorrow. But the Wall Street Journal has a piece on how lockdowns, now that they're really analyzing it, oh, what a shock. It turns out that lockdowns are costly and blunt. That's what they're saying, costly and blunt, and might not even really have the health benefits, the life-saving benefits that we're told that they do. And remember, I've been trying to look at this logic all along and explain this to people, but I know it gets frustrating to just hear the same things over and over. But it's locking us down until numbers go down and then unlocking us before there's a vaccine. All this means is you're creating all this economic contraction and economic dislocation, but you're not saving people from being exposed to the virus. You're just extending out the duration of viral exposure in society. So you're locking down the economy for a while. It's like an accordion. Lock it down. Oh, open up. Oh, there's more cases. Lock it down. Oh, open up. There's more cases. That's not a plan. That doesn't do anything. Sweden never locked down, and Sweden is through it. As I was saying from the beginning, I said that makes sense as a strategy. Protect the elderly, make sure hospitals have capacity, and then from there, avoid super spreader events and see where you are in 6 months. That's a strategy. In New York, what we're doing, which is just lockdown forever, basically, lockdown until, now they've had a reinfection of a COVID-19 case, and it looks like a real reinfection. This one actually means that people don't have immunity forever. Maybe your immunity only lasts for 6 months. The virus can mutate a bit, which means that even if we have an effective vaccine, there may be mutating strains of COVID-19 that still infect people. Perhaps, hopefully, they're much less lethal, and so it won't be as big of a deal. But what are we doing? We're going to keep locking down society and locking down society? It's crazy. It's crazy. It has been crazy all along. It's a bad idea pushed by people who are panicked, fearful, and a lot of people, not all the panicked and fearful, I understand. It's a scary thing. It was in the early days. Look, the first 60 days in New York, some of you are like, Buck, you sound so bummed out about this. I'm like, yeah, because they're telling us that we're basically all going to die in New York. I mean, the fear factor in New York City was off the charts for a while. But as soon as I recognized that I was way overblown in New York, because I saw what the numbers were, saw what was happening, I said, hold on a second. We don't need to do this. In fact, I remember I was saying that we should open up for Easter Sunday, And I thought it was a huge mistake the Trump administration gave into the pressure on that. But the lockdowns were a disastrous and wrong policy. Disastrous and wrong. I think we should all be quite clear on that. Greg brought up the Ebola situation and comparing Ebola to COVID. I mean, that's idiocy. This reminds me when people say contract tracing works for sexually transmitted diseases. Right. Because sitting down with somebody and saying, who did you have sex with for a disease that can only be spread by having sex with somebody or sharing a needle with somebody, for example, that's a small pool, you would think. That's a small pool of people, and that's a pretty clear thing. Who have you been around breathing the same air with over the last week or two? No idea. No idea. You can't contact trace that. Idiocy. It's idiocy, and it has been all along. Ebola is spread through fluids. Now, if you sit within 5 feet of somebody on a subway, you might breathe in their viral particles in the air. But I think you can be pretty sure that you're not, getting their blood in your eye if they happen to have Ebola, which, thank God, that did not spread across the country the way that some people thought it would. But a much easier virus to contain, even though a truly horrific virus, if you are to get it. All right, more roll call. Roger next up. He writes, Buck, your oversimplification and slander of North Carolina barbecue is blasphemous. Look, Roger, I knew I was going to touch a nerve with some of my wonderful team, Buck, in North Carolina. And look, man, maybe I just need to try it at a different place. But I went to that King's barbecue place, and that was just not even... I can make better barbecue myself at home in New York City in my tiny apartment. That's just the truth. It was not good enough. And when they brought me over a sauce, and it was a little, when Producer Mark, when they bring you like a little side of mayo or something, it'll be in a little plastic thing. Yeah. They brought me, a little tiny open cup kind of thing. They brought me a little thing like that with some, like a thimble almost of vinegar. A thimble of vinegar, and said, pour that on your, and I just was like, this is not, I don't know. Look, so Roger, write in and tell me, where can I get real classic, world-class North Carolina barbecue? Because what I had at this King's place, it was really the only disappointment of my time in North Carolina, because I was told King's barbecue is going to be really good, and it was not. A lot of fried crap on the menu. I'm just going to say it. A lot of just, fried this, fried. It was like fried bread with fried stuff on it. And then, where are my sides? Where are my different kinds of meat? I don't know. I didn't like it. I'm just going to tell you the truth. Texas barbecue, Tennessee barbecue, it's like a reason to move there. We'll see. You tell me what North Carolina's got. Oh, we got more of this. Angela, we have served North Carolina barbecue to the Doobie Brothers. My daughter got a picture with them in other groups. Anyhow, North Carolina barbecue sauce is not just vinegar. Brown sugar and different spices are added. Depends on the chef. My favorite is South Carolina barbecue sauce. Just saying. Wait, are we now... Producer Mark, is there a difference between North and South Carolina barbecue?
I guess so, based on that one write-in. I've never heard of it.
I was unaware of that.
I'm sure there's a little rivalry between the states.
Oh, of course. Of course. Next up here, Alan. The sous vide is a great start for a reverse sear or a hot grill sear. I've been grilling and smoking meats for years, and when my wife tried it, I was very skeptical. She finished it in the broiler in one of my prized cast iron skillets, and it turned out wonderful. It's a great method when the sides require attention or guests not arriving all at the same time. Shields high. No, Alan, look, people tell me they love sous vide. I'm not ready to make that jump yet. I'm happy with my reverse sear. And I don't know. I just putting my steak in like boiling water or something. I can't get excited. I can't get excited about it. But you're probably right, Alan, because initially I thought reverse sear, I'm just going to grill it better on that. Nope. I will, if you give me 10 steaks and tell me you want them medium rare and you let me reverse sear them, I will outdo, unless someone's a professional chef and really knows what they're doing, and then they do it on a stovetop, they're going to probably have 5 really, if they're a good cook, 5 perfectly cooked steaks and 5 that are off, either too dry, too cooked or not cooked enough. And I'm going to go 10 for 10. Kim, hey, Buck, the only reason I listen to you every day is I can't stand the mask, and you're the only person I know who will say it's stupid. I love how you bring it up on almost every podcast. Thanks. Or not the only reason, she said. The reason. Well, that's good. Thank you, Kim. Glad you're on my team on that one. Everybody, please share the buck, pass the buck, tell somebody to download this podcast. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart app. Shields high.